a person called Rebecca Lloyd.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for having me. For those of you wondering why I'm wearing these gorgeous sparkly flats, it's because I had a fairly significant accident back in June of this year when I was taking myself away for a lovely holiday. And the reason I share that with you this evening is because it was one of the greatest moments of my life in that enabled me to pivot. Now, I am one of the lucky few, or lucky many, that lost their work in March of last year. I was an entertainer of around 15 years, a pro entertainer. Thankfully for me, I also was able to pivot very quickly into marketing, which I've been doing for a very, very long time. And thanks to my accident back in June when I was lying on my sick bed for a solid 4 months in a lot of pain, and I was watching everything online and everything was going on, I decided that I would pivot. And all the business owners in here this evening, you all know how to pivot. And the tension is actually in the pre-pivot. It's when you're not sure, what should I do, where should I go? But once you make a decision and you step into that, then things miraculously come to meet you. So I've made a decision, I've pivoted, I've stepped into that, and things are coming to meet me. I am having all kinds of people. Just today, I'm now going up to the Whit Sundays and up to Cairns next week to go and speak. Why is this so important that we pivot? As business owners, we must pivot, we must make these decisions to get through the J-curve, all that yada yada that they talk to you about. But at no other time in business history have we been able to pivot together as a collective. And that is actually the most exciting thing for business owners, because one of the reasons why businesses fail so much is because of loneliness and the shame factor of speaking out that I'm actually not doing so well and I need help. And now we get to all pivot together. But there are a whole bunch of like-minded locals in this auditorium. We have the same thing on Monday night with the Sunshine Coast. We had thousands of people. But the people in this auditorium tonight, you are servicing like-minded customers who might not be here this evening, and they are willing to pivot with you. So it's really very, very simple. We all get to step at the same time, pivot at the same time. You get to step into our newfound power. And I am going to ask for a show of hands because I know there's a similar heartbeat in the room this evening. How many of you feel this sense of energy that you think, you know what, this is very uncomfortable and I don't enjoy this, but I know I'm doing it for the next generation and I was actually born for such a time as this? Yeah, that's like 95% of the room, and the others were just nodding. So that's 100% of the room. So as business owners, we all are very good at pivoting, all together. And all of us have played small for a long time because of, the power of the dollar, or the power of the time, or the power of this, or the power of that. But now we actually fight not only for ourselves, but we fight for our children, we fight for our children's children, and we know that our customers are fighting with us. And the only thing you need to do this evening from my little section, I don't even need your time because I'm almost done. All you need to do this evening, I'll be standing, please come and say hi to me because we're all pivoting together. Just come and scan the QR code. It's a nice QR code. It's a lovely QR code. What this is going to enable you to do is list your business so that like-minded customers can find you, like-minded businesses can find you. Now, at the moment, we're a directory. Once we reach critical mass, we're moving into a product-based platform. That's when things get very, very powerful. That's when we fight back against wealth centralisation, and that's a topic for a whole other conversation. But together, we get to pivot through COVID. We then get to pivot through the next thing, because COVID is not, it's just the beginning. We all know that, you deep down in our hearts. We know this is just the beginning. But this is, we get to flex. And then we pivot, and we flex harder, and we harder and harder. And may I just say, as I'm finally closing out, it's just really on my heart to say this evening that I think no other time have men and women come together, women to support the men, men to support the women, and there is just so much community, and to support the family, and together we really can do this. So just come scan, list your business, find like-minded customers. We'll be putting out lots and lots of different legal information to help you so that you know before you pivot, what do I have to do? How do I tool myself up so that I can pivot across? So thank you so much for having me this evening. I'm looking forward to meeting and shaking hands with as many as possible. and let's all pivot together for the next generation, because together we can truly rebuild Australia. Thank you.
Is not your average lawyer. He holds the oldest named chair at the University of Queensland. Before arriving in Australia in 2005, he spent 11 years teaching law in New Zealand at the University of Otago, and before that lectured in law in Hong Kong. Professor Allen is a native-born Canadian who practiced law in a large Toronto law firm and at the bar in London before shifting to teaching law. He's published widely in the areas of legal philosophy and constitutional law, including in all the top English language legal philosophy journals in the US, the UK, Canada and Australia. Much the same being true of constitutional law journals as well. Let me tell you, getting published in one of those is not easy. Professor Allen also writes widely for newspapers and weeklies, including the Australian, Spectator Australia and Quadrant. And since arriving here in Australia, he has given or participated in more than 80 lectures, debates and talks. He's a lot of fun to listen to, actually. He sent his apologies for not being able to stand with Logan businesses tonight in person and asked me to read this opinion from him, and I quote. He has a Jordan Peterson type voice, but I won't try and do the imitation. If you can just imagine it, it'd be a favour. No, I'm not going to try. I was tempted with this one. You've got to rehearse that kind of thing. Vaccine mandates are a terrible mistake. They are illiberal. They segregate members of society, as in jettisoning equality before the law. To be remotely defensible, the disease against which they are aimed should surely be very lethal indeed, like the Spanish flu or the Black Death. Yet, COVID-19 comes nowhere near the level of lethality needed to justify what amounts to a huge inroad into the basic standards of a functioning liberal democracy. If your inclination is to support them, remember this. For those who catch COVID-19 and who are not vaccinated, some 99.7% survive. For those under 50 years of age, you'll get about one death for every 50,000 people who catch it. This virus is dangerous, but it is selectively dangerous. If you're over 80 or obese or have a number of comorbidities, then look out. Of course, all those dangers diminish with vaccination. But remember, the question here is whether you wish to throw away the core elements of living in a liberal democracy to move towards soft despotism and soft segregationism. Whether you support segregating certain people, thereby making it impossible for them to work or go to entertainment venues or do much other than eat, for a disease with that level of danger. I certainly do not. I think it's disgraceful. And to be clear, I have been double vaccinated. Let me also note that I spent 8 years on the Otago University Ethics Committee when working in New Zealand. Beware of university ethics committees. I regularly pushed back against the endlessly repeated "nothing beats informed consent" mantra. But I never imagined a day would come when most everyone in the public health hierarchy was chanting, "Group benefits should trump any and all individual decision-making calls." Yet here we are. And that is precisely what the doctorly caste and its enablers in the political class are proposing, however they try to disguise it. Fine. But for that to make sense, firstly, there needs to be a clear evidence that unvaccinated people are considerably more likely to transmit COVID than the vaccinated, right? You won't hear this much in the media, but in fact there is no such evidence. Indeed, most of the recent studies point the other way. Surely this is the bottom line for anyone who cares even a fig for freedom, civil liberties and living in a country with equality before the law. The facts are now clear that the gains, if any, from any heavy-handed vaccine mandates that would undoubtedly cost people jobs and severely affect dissenting students are so marginal that they patently do not justify the restriction of liberty. Moreover, once we have started down the path on which tiny gains in public health do justify the suspension of our liberties, that opens the door to many more restrictions in return for other supposed benefits. Or put differently, you have to have heroic levels of trust in government to think these mandates are a good idea, especially now that it is plain that the overwhelming benefit of the vaccine flows to those who take it and almost none to bystanders. Those who don't choose to vaccinate are not raising your statistical risks as a vaccinated person in any greater sense than all sorts of things you do regularly, like getting into a car and driving at night. So, in my view, these mandates amount to terrible, illiberal public policy. I'll say it again. Vaccine mandates are a terrible idea. Speak now or forever expect despotic, heavy-handed government. Thank you, Professor Allen.
All right, folks, just a short note. I went to the one at Morayfield. I also went to the one at Thornlands. I didn't see any police at Morayfield. I saw 2 police at Thornlands, and the crowd was like 3,000 people there. But here, there's probably somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people in this hall, which I haven't shown a crowd yet. Well, let's have a look. Got some down there. Got one walking along here. We've got a bunch of them standing around here doing nothing. There's vans, and there's a mobile headquarter van down in the corner down there. Logan's dangerous. Goodness gracious. These are dangerous people. What morons.
Because,
Alright, well here's a pan
once
of the
again, in a false religion,
people in this
you have to
room.
hold on to the faith, to the dogma, no matter to what. No matter what it costs.
I would say between 500 and 1,000.
There are other motivations beside. I think one is take a try on democracy, hopefully one last time maybe, and also massive civil disobedience.
Okay, well, I've just been told, this is the end of it. There was a bunch of Antifa here. That's why all the coppers were here before. So, okay, good on the coppers then. My bad for thinking they were being a bunch of standovers here. But when you get a bunch of violent little thugs, I suppose you'd call them, like Antifa is and has been known to be, I can understand it. All right, so that's it for me. Catch you later.